Hello everyone, welcome to today's news chatter. Let's begin with a prelims practice question. All right, let's take a look at this question. It's a very simple factual question. Q-Champ Initiative, recently released by Quad, is related to which of the following? Q-Champ Initiative is related to climate change and it is related to early warning system. So this is a fact which you should know. One thing, Quad itself is very important. Anything related to Quad becomes very important. So QChamp is an initiative by the Quad countries, so that is India, United States of America, Australia, and Japan, which talks about the early warning system and climate data. Let's start with the first topic of the day. Forests are national assets. That's what Supreme Court has told in a recent judgment. Forests and the definition of forest are extremely important for the upcoming examination, especially because of the Forest Act, which was passed in 2023. Forest Conservation Amendment Act was passed in 2023. Earlier, there was an act, Forest Conservation Act of 1980, that was modified in 2023 and they made certain changes. And later, the Supreme Court gave some verdict about it. So, what is the entire story? We need to know. Earlier, even during the British time, the Forest Act was there, but the forests were defined in such a way that it will be beneficial for the British for commercial exploitation of forests. Later, after independence, we made certain changes, especially in 1950s and then in 1980. The government of India made certain changes to the Forest Act. It told that it gave a very wide definition of forest. But the most important point here is in 1996, a very important case happened in Supreme Court, that is T.N. Godavarman Tirmalpad case. In this Godavarman Tirmalpad case, the Supreme Court told that we cannot give a concrete definition for forest. It said that we need a very broad interpretation of forest. Forest should have a broad interpretation because we cannot just like that define a forest space. We cannot tell that whatever forest the government has given in its data, given in its gazette, only that will be considered as forest. So the Supreme Court told there should be a very wide interpretation of forest. Wherever there is more tree or wherever there is more tree cover, etc., more wild animals, flora, fauna, that can be considered as forest. So this is what in 1996 happened. Later, what the government did is it passed the Forest Conservation Amendment Act 2023. In this, they made two major points for defining the forest. They said land declared as forest under the Forest Act. When is this Forest Act? 1925. Whatever was discussed, whatever was defined in the Forest Act of that time, or any other law that is notified as forest after 25th October 1980. Because in 1980, we had an act called Forest Conservation Act. So it is telling whatever land is described as forest according to the Forest Act of 1927 or anything that is declared as forest by the government after 1980 will be considered as forest. So basically what they're telling is whatever land is explained as forest by the government, that will be considered as forest. Then they are telling any land that is converted from a forest land to no non-forest land before 1996 will also be considered as forest. So basically, the government is telling that whatever land is classified as forest by the government, only that land will be considered as forest. So what about those lands which are forest but not declared as forest by the government? So this is what the Supreme Court is asking. So the Supreme Court has put a stay on this Amendment Act. For now, there is no proper conclusion. The most important point here is we need to know about T.N. Godavarman Tirmalpad case in which the Supreme Court gave a very wide interpretation of forest. Also, recently there was a case in the Supreme Court in which the Supreme Court has told that forests in India are natural assets and it is a major contributor to nation's financial wealth. So these things should be noted down so that you can have good points in your mains examination. Different variants of BrahMos missile. BrahMos missile itself is very important for your examination. At present, it becomes more important because India has been giving the BrahMos missile. It has been exporting BrahMos missile to Philippines. So, in this point of view, BrahMos missile and its specification is very important. BrahMos means Brahmaputra plus Moskva. Moskva is a river in Russia. So, India and Russia combinedly came up with the idea of developing a hypersonic high-end cruise missile, and the BrahMos is the result of this initiative. BrahMos is a long range. These points are extremely important. Try to remember these points. BrahMos is a long range. It is nuclear capable. It is a supersonic, and it is a cruise missile system. It is a long range hypersonic, long range supersonic cruise missile system. The difference between cruise missile and ballistic missile is something you should be knowing. Simply telling, ballistic missile is something which will get the highest altitude, it will go out of the atmosphere and then reach the target. Cruise missile is something which can travel along the ground surface, just a small altitude from the ground surface, and it can hit the target. So cruise missile is actually more efficient than ballistic missile. The speed of BrahMos missile is Mach 3. One Mach is one time the sound of speed. Mach 3 is three times the sound of speed. Sound of speed is 330 meter per second or 1234 kilometer per hour. So this is the speed in which this BrahMos missile will be traveling, 330 meter per second. High supersonic speed all through the flight. Throughout the flight, high supersonic speed will be there, and the range is 290 kilometers. It can hit the target within 290 kilometers. Launch platforms. It can be launched from the ground. It can be launched from air, from a fighter jet. It can be launched from sea, from on top of a ship. And the most important point, it can be launched from a submarine also, that is underwater. Even from underwater, it can be launched. BrahMos Aerospace was developed, and it was the BrahMos Aerospace which built the BrahMos missile. And this BrahMos Aerospace is a company which is a joint venture of India and Russia. In this, India owns 50.5% stocks, and Russia owns 49.5% of shares. BrahMos has two stages. It is a two-stage missile. We are talking about the propulsion system. There will be a solid propellant booster engine. During the cruise phase, the liquid ramjet, that is the second stage. So we told that it is a two-stage missile. The first stage will be solid propellant. Second stage will be liquid ramjet system. So this is when it is launched. First, the solid propellant will work, and it will ignite the liquid propellant. It is a liquid propellant which will give the speed of 3 Mach, velocity of 3 Mach. It works on fire and forget based principle. That is, you fix a target and then you fire the weapon will go and attack the target. No matter how it changes, how much the target keeps changing its position. Two different varieties are there, two different variants are there. One is BrahMos NG, new generation. Its range is the same, 290 kilometer, but speed will be 3.5 Mach. The most important point here is BrahMos Mark II. BrahMos Mark II is a very ambitious project in which we are going to develop hypersonic cruise missile. Hypersonic, it is highly efficient. Its velocity will be Mach 7, 7 times the speed of sound, and range will be over 300 miles. Here we are talking about just 290 kilometer. In Mark 2, it will be over 300 miles. So very high. Measures required to promote research in India. So this was an article from the Hindu, but it is something which gives a lot of points which you can use in your mains answer. Because India has been trying to develop its research environment. India has been trying to develop its tech-based startup ecosystem. So in this scenario, we need to know what measures we should be taking. Very simple, certain data you need to know. First and foremost is India's spending for research and development is just 0.7% of GDP. In other places, especially in developed countries, it is around 4, and even in certain developing countries, such as China, it is 2.5% of GDP. So India has been spending very less when it comes to research and development, and this should be improved. First thing, private investment is something which we should start tapping. It is it is actually less than 40 percentage in the present scenario. We should be improving it. One excellent step which the government took is they passed the Anusandhan National Research Foundation Bill. Anusandhan National Research Foundation is to create a research foundation called as Anusandhan National Research Foundation, which will be headed by the Prime Minister himself, and the executive will be the principal scientific secretary of the Prime Minister. So here they have told that we will be spending 50,000 crore, 50,000 crore in the next 5 years. And the central government has already given 10,000 crore. It has told that out of this 50,000 crore, 14,000 crore will be coming from the government. Remaining 36,000 crore should come from the private sector. The problem is private sector is already not spending money. So how are they going to spend 36,000 is a question. Public sector institutions, physical and intellectual infrastructure should be built. Then we should try to develop the same standards in private sector also. Making of hiring in educational institutions to a proper standard. If we should have a proper standard for professors and lecturers in private and public, technology based or engineering based or even medical based universities and colleges. A robust science grant management system should be there. There should be a proper grant, and the grant should be provided to people who deserve it. So these are all the measures which you can mention in your answer. One very important Indian national leader was in news recently. So we need to study about him because in modern history, from the point of modern history, this personality is very important. Govind Guru, he was a tribal leader, he was a social reformer also, and he is someone who is not read very well by the people. So we need to concentrate on him. He was born to a nomadic community, the Bhil community in Rajasthan, Dungarpur, Banswara region of Rajasthan. Dungarpur, Banswara region of Rajasthan, important fact. So in today's news, in my opinion, this particular topic is very important. For modern history, personalities are being asked regularly, so we need to study about them. So he was highly influenced by Swami Dayanand Saraswati. The Beals were submerged in um, uh, high amount of social evils such as alcoholism, um, indebtedness, labors, etc., bonded labors, etc. So Govind Guru is one person who thought that we need a complete reform of the entire society of the bills so that they will also develop. So he started a Samp Sabha. Samp means unity. He founded the Samp Sabha in 1883 to promote harmony among the tribes because they were infighting among themselves. He wanted to unite everyone and he wanted to make a unity among the entire tribes. He wanted to fight against alcoholism, indebtedness. He told them how to live a good life. He started to preach them how to live a clean, neat life. What are all the good things they have to do? What are all the social evils they have to remove, etc. He also started Bhagat Sampradaya in 1808. He worked for socio-religious reform among the Bills. So one important point which we need to know is Mangar massacre. Mangar massacre happened in 1913. In 1913. We generally talk about Jallianwala Bagh massacre and several other massacres that happened during the 1857 revolt. One very important point or one very important incident we generally miss out is the Mangar massacre, where around 1,500 tribal freedom fighters were shot dead by the police. We generally don't even know about it. We never study about it because it is based on tribals, and tribals are generally ignored by the mainstream. So this is the reason from UPSC's point of view, you need to know about Mangar massacre. Beals placed a charter of 33 demands before the British by 1910. They said that we need labor reforms, we need high tax imposed on, we need to remove the high tax imposed on bills, and they also said that we need to remove the harassments that the people have been facing. And they went on for an agitation, and the British said that you have to move away. They did not move, and the British opened fire, in which 1,500 people were killed. Later, Govind Guru was jailed by the British, and then he was released also later. But in the last few years, he spent his entire time under severe exploitation by the British. By 1930s, he died also. So he's a person who need to be celebrated, and we need to study about him properly. One important topic which you need to know from prelims point of view is about Mount Ruang. Mount Ruang is located in Indonesia. It is a remote Indonesian volcano which erupted recently. Any volcanic eruption, any natural disaster should be studied properly. Mount Ruang, where is it? It is in Indonesia. Be very careful about it. Study it properly. It is a stratovolcano. What exactly is a stratovolcano? Stratovolcano is a composite volcano. There are different types of volcanoes, shield volcano, etc. Shield volcanoes, caldera, stratovolcano, etc. So composite volcano is also called as stratovolcano. Composite volcano will be there in your geography book, physical geography book, study about it. So it is a volcano which is developed because of multiple volcanic eruptions. First time the eruption happens, it will develop until this layer. Second, again, volcanic eruption happen, it will develop under this layer. Again, third time it will happen, it will develop here. Later, again, if it happens, again, it will keep building. So whatever volcanic magma that comes, it will flow out in this direction, and then it will help in building also. So the magma that comes out is highly viscous, very high density. So this is something which you need to know. Generally, in which places stratovolcano will develop? It will develop in the subduction zone. So Indonesia is an island country that is located along Circum-Pacific Belt. Circum-Pacific Belt is known for its subduction zones, convergent plates, so subduction zones. So this is why Mount Ruang has developed here. It will always have a small crater in the top here. It will have a small crater, and whenever volcanic eruption happens, this crater will completely go away. So this point is something which you need to remember. One important point which you can actually use in your mains answer writing if you are getting a question on climate change is about the recent data in 2022 given by the Reserve Bank of India, which told that because of the ongoing climate change, India could lose around 3 to 10% of its GDP by 2100. That is by the end of this century. So such points, whenever I'm telling, it is very important for mains. You need to quote a lot of data, you need to quote a lot of facts, examples, etc. in your answers. So that will be all for today. All the best. Study well. Let's meet tomorrow.